Okay, and we are live. Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Neutral Zone. I am your host, Renaissance Woman, aka Ren Judah, and I'm here today with Dr. G from Girl You Better Enterprise, the Enterprise, right? I see you changed your name. Some people will probably know you from catering to the culture. That used
That's
to be your
right.
name before. So, Dr. G, tell us what's up with you, Girl You Better, and tell us about this name change.
Yeah. So first of all, good to see you again, Red. It feels like old times. It
I
really
know
does.
it's great to
Which
see you.
which warms my heart because we had some good old times, right,
We
on this
did.
YouTube. So, um, Girl You Better is, well, it's colloquial, right? So, pretty much, when you're talking to your girlfriends, girl, you better stop, or girl, you better go, or girl, you better say that, or that kind of thing. I personally use the term a lot, and so it kind of occurred to me to use it as as I reform my channel and the direction I want to go into my channel, because I really want it to be about women and women's empowerment, true women's empowerment, right? And so it's a way of encouragement. Girl, you better go. Girl, you better live, laugh, love, dance, praise, sing, and then also at the same time telling girls, hey, you better, as in you better than that. Move around, do what you got to do. So that's sort of what, my new brainchild is all about, empowerment for women.
So, Dr. G, I think you've always been a positive influence in the space, but just looking at the couple of videos that you have up on the site right now, I just see an infusion of new energy. It's just like something really new. And I want to talk about that change. Like, what brought upon this new change, and basically, what inspired you to do this? To just dedicate it to women's movement? Because I feel like if I'm guessing, I don't know, I feel like a life change happened here.
Well, listen, Ren, we've had lots of life changes since we were originally on this app, I was married then and I'm divorced now, so that certainly is a huge life change. I was in St. Louis at that time and now I'm in Georgia.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And also since that time I have two grandchildren, two grandsons, right?
Wow.
So yeah. So my eldest son and his wife have made me a grandmother, which is really centering, but it's amazing to be able to have an opportunity to do it again, but differently, right?
Mhm.
So all of those things have played a part. I think the biggest thing for me, though, Ren, is just having still been in the space as an observer and sort of
Mhm.
seeing the direction that some of the female influencers are attempting to take the women.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is troubling to me. It's very centered around telling women who they aren't and what they can't do and, what they should have done differently. It's centered around their mistakes with men, which, you can't really calibrate what's going to happen when you're in a relationship. We all hope for the best, but many times it doesn't turn out that way. And
That's right.
so for me, it's about making sure that women understand that their empowerment does not lie within their relationships or their romantic relationships, right? That's not where your empowerment lies. Your true empowerment lies within yourself, knowing yourself and taking good care of yourself. And I mean care in ways that is not really talked about a lot, right? So for Girl You Better, it's really about sharing my journey with self-care culture, leadership discovery, and leaning into my passion and creativity. Those are the pillars. And I think that if we can maximize who we are in those three veins, we can show up in the world as women who we can be proud of, but also as women who are protecting themselves, right? Because when you elevate, there are certain people that just won't even come your way. They
Yeah.
just won't even step in your path because they already know, and this is men and women. They already
That's right.
know that you're on a different level, you're elevating higher, and they can't contend, so they go the other way. And I think that true women's empowerment is really about making sure that we are operating at our highest self, our happiest, our healthiest. And that's the message that I want to bring.
I think it's really great that you point that out because a lot of times women, when you start growing and you do start empowering yourself and you start to elevate, I'll hear women say they feel more isolated. And I think what happens is you're so used to what you used to do. You're still moving that way while maybe financially, professionally, you have progressed, but socially, you're still in the same place. And so it will feel isolating, and you'll not have the same opportunities to move with people who are basically in your social class, economic status, educationally, however you are changing, even spiritually. Like when you start to develop spiritually, you can't go back to doing or sometimes being with the people who you used to be. And it's not that you are saying, "Oh, I'll never speak to them again," or that I'm better than them. It's just that sometimes you have to take the step to introduce yourself to new spaces. So I think that's a conversation that needs to go along that with for people, that your isolation is because you're still moving the same way you used to. And so if you're doing that, it does, like you said, repel people. They're going, I don't even want to go over there. She on that stuff over there. I ain't on that. She wants too much. And even with relationships, men can be like, oh, she's high maintenance. It's not high maintenance. A lot of times it's just that this is just not your weight class.
Right, right. And, I really want to encourage women to see that as an asset, that isolation, and use that time to really dig deeper into yourself, love on yourself, heal yourself, forgive yourself.
Yeah.
So many times we move from one relationship to the next, and that be romantic and friendships. And it's important for you to take some time to just sit with yourself and be okay with that. If you can't spend time with yourself, you're not going to be any good for anyone else. And I learned that at this big age, that
Hmm.
perhaps maybe instead of getting married when I did, that was a time for me to really spend some time with myself. And the reason is because, I was a mother, a very young mother. 19 years old, I was a mother. And then 8 years later came my second child. So my 20s was spent with, that's a time that typically we get to learn who we are, what we like, what we don't like. We get to, travel the world and just kind of experiment with life a little bit, grow up, right? Well, I was raising children and creating a home for these boys.
Right.
And so I had to sacrifice the things that I would have given to myself at that time to make sure that I was raising these productive males, right? And so once they were grown and out the house, that was the time for me to recenter me. And instead, I got myself into a relationship. And what I didn't realize then that I know now, and I'm very confident about it, is that I just wasn't in the proper emotional space and headspace to take on another relationship like that, especially a marriage, right? Um, but when it didn't last, I was devastated. When I realized this is not going to work, it was devastating. And so moving away and finally taking that time for myself, I really got a chance to dig in and kind of discover some things that I had been getting wrong. Like, for instance, my health, my health, right? um I had always been a yo-yo sort of dieter, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight, lose weight. And blood pressure issues and all of these things. And during that time, I had an opportunity to really do a lot of self-reflection and research, like all this information on YouTube. And you
Yeah,
can't, get yourself together in terms of your health. You can, because the information is here.
it is.
Um, but long story short, I just really, focused on myself. And so I got on a proper eating regimen. Like I've been a junk food eater most of my life, is what I come to realize. And so I got on a proper eating regimen and, lost 40 pounds. And so that's the self-care journey. I know how to exercise now for results, not just for fads. Like, I've been in boot camps. I've done ultimate trainers. I mean, I've done it all. You know what I mean? But not really with a clear consciousness and understanding about what I needed for my body. So that
Right.
time alone, I was able to refocus that. So that's the self-care part of it. And then the culture part is just making sure to pass these new learnings and teachings down to generations so we can begin to refocus what traditions and rituals we have in our communities, right? Because we, as a whole, we need to make some changes. Um, the leadership discovery is really easy for me because I've always been a leader. I'm the oldest daughter of two younger brothers, the only girl. And so I had a lot of responsibility, but in that responsibility, I honed some certain skill sets, right?
Right.
The power of influence, right?
Mhm.
For one, working with these boys, you know what I mean? Um, and you know how influence is really is one of the most compelling leadership traits, because if you don't possess the power to influence, what kind of leader are you really, you know? Empathy and understanding that everybody are people first and employers or teachers or whatever second. Can you get in there and identify and connect with the person? Because if you can do that, then you can lead them wherever they need to go or wherever you need them to go. um and so being a leader in my life and in my career, um that part just had to be in the new work some way, right? And
Mhm.
then the passion and creativity, um the things that make you the most happiest, the things that you would do for free, the things that you do just because they center you. um for me, I remembered that was writing, hence my children's book that I recently published. um and then singing. I absolutely have always loved singing. And so now I do it out loud. And I told, look, y'all gonna get tired of me, but I'm getting ready to lean into my passion. Okay. If you don't want to hear it, just go ahead and turn it down or scroll to the next. But I got to do this for me. This is a part of my heart health. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there you have it. I really think that's the winning combination. If you can get your self-care and your passion and creativity to align, right? Using those leadership traits that you've cultivated over time and just don't know you have. You need Girl You Better with Dr. G to kind of point that out for you. If we can get those things to align, listen, you are building a woman that the world is going to have to contend with. And that's the kind of women that I'd like to see us become.
So I saw your video about your children's book. You want to tell us a little bit about that? And I like that I like the video.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ren. I don't know why I don't have a book over here, but I did wear the shirt. Let's see if I can show you. I did. Yeah, there she is, Jeanie Pearl. Okay.
So cute.
um, so I am a program specialist for a professional development nonprofit. And essentially what I do is I travel around the nation working with teachers all over the place to help them to cultivate their skills for being culturally responsive teachers. Essentially, understanding how culture plays a huge role in how students engage and learn in the classroom. And so I wanted to do a children's book to sort of help teachers to connect to the lessons and the different protocols and activities that we're getting them, that we're trying to encourage them to use so that they can validate and affirm who the students are and how they show up. I wanted to
Mhm.
do a children's book series to sort of help with that, because you know the power of storytelling, right? You put the
Right.
characters in place and now people can see it come to life. And so that's what Jeanie Pearl is. She is a 11-year-old fifth grader who has a superpower for reading the room, and she is able to help her peers and her teachers to understand situational appropriateness, right? Because this is her superpower. She can read the room and kind of tell, hey, wait a minute, something's not going right here. We need to do a switch, right? And so the very first book is a lesson on realness. Realness is a cultural behavior that many of our children have when they go to school. Unfortunately, the adults teach them how to not be so real by telling them it's rude and disrespectful, when really what it is direct. And that's what we are. We're direct. But we have to see that as an asset coming from kids, right? And so Jeanie Pearl is there to let the teachers and even her peers know that keeping it real is not a bad thing. We just have to understand how to apply it in different situations. So you got to be able to read the room, right? Sometimes
Right.
being very direct is the way to go. Other times being indirect is a better way to go. And so the trick is knowing the when. Yeah. And so that's what it's about. I have two more coming out soon, so I'm excited.
That's great. And I saw the video, and I saw one of the students them conversing about when to keep it real. And I think that's a good point you make. It's about balance because I don't know if you remember what was it? One of these shows it was when keeping it real goes wrong. I think it was like Dave Chappelle. And it's like people seem to think that keeping it real and being rude and abrasive, that's not the same thing.
It's not.
Being true and authentic to yourself and telling the truth, speaking your truth, or as they like to say now, speaking truth to power, does not mean that we're disrespectful and we are disregarding other people's feelings and their
Absolutely.
spaces.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's about time and place, right?
Hmm.
And when we teach our kids these skills, or when we validate and affirm these skills in the students, and then teach them how when being indirect is a better way to go, we're teaching
Hmm.
them how to navigate the world. They become globally dexterous, right? Because they understand that in this situation, being very direct is going to be appreciated, it's going to be validated, while in this situation it's not going to be validated. And so I'm going to stay my authentic self, yet I'm going to use a different route to get there. So I'm going to be more indirect, but you know in a route to being direct, because you got to show people, you got to teach people how to treat you. And so that's what that's really about.
So tell me, what does global dexterity look like?
So global dexterity means, another word for that would be situational appropriateness. It's being able to navigate the world based on the situation you're in, right? So I could walk into any situation, and if I know how to read the room, then I know what's going to be appropriate for me at that time and place. And then I know how to address it. I know how to fit in. I know how to work the room. You know, there's a consciousness out now that is sort of suggesting that when you have to culture switch, or when you have to read the room and become appropriate for the room, that's not
Right.
freedom, right?
Code switching, yeah.
Yeah, that is not freedom. And I guess I can understand where that thinking lies. Unfortunately, we don't live in a world where we've ever really been able to be free. And I don't
Right.
think that walking into a situation and not understanding the norms of that situation and operating outside of those norms, I don't think that's going to get us into the room.
Right.
I think getting into the room, being situationally appropriate, right? Being your wonderfully situationally appropriate self, right? Gets you in the room. And then as you begin to take your place in that room and your seat at the table, you begin to let people see, more of who you are. Because I'm not suggesting that this is not who you are. This is who you are. We're
Right.
very dimensional people, right? We've had to be able to navigate these Americas. We've had to be dimensional. So I want children to recognize what they're doing, because they do it all the time. We're just putting a label on it. Okay. You're
Right.
being direct versus indirect. You're
Hmm.
being sociocentristic, socializing to learn, versus being autonomous, where you're sort of learning on your own, right? You're using proximity and closeness versus not being close. Eye contact versus no eye contact. All these things matter in how we navigate this world, this country, and this world. And so we just want children to be able to understand that and to move accordingly. That's it.
So would you say you predominantly travel and speak to minority children schools, black schools, or
Majority, the children are either Latinx or Black children.
mm.
Their teachers are majority white teachers.
And so when you talk about teaching cultural awareness to a group that's primarily a people of color, and you have a white teacher, do you think that they are able to grasp the concept and translate that over into their curriculum in a way that makes sense and that's beneficial?
Yeah, so the executive director, the founder of the center that I work for, my boss, a brother, okay, out of LA, is absolutely magnificent in that foundational work, getting people to understand what culture is, what it's not, and that language and behavior is very much so a part of culture. And people are not showing up without their culture. They're not doing it. You're not going to suspend them out of their culture. You're not going to put them in school suspension out of their culture. You're not going to detention them out of their culture. You're not. They're going to show up this way. So, what
Right.
we need to do as educators is understand the culture of children, the nature and the needs of children, right? And then teach them based on that nature and those needs, and also help them to understand how to navigate situations outside of their ordinary, home culture or cultures that they're familiar with. We can do both in the classroom, depending
Mhm.
on, how consistent you are and, how much you truly love children before you meet them. Because let's face it, if you're not loving children before you meet them, I don't know if you should have a place in the classroom. I don't
I
know about
agree.
that. I won't say you don't, you shouldn't, but I'm not
Right.
sure. Because you've got to have a heart and a mind that's going to allow you to bend and mold yourself in a way that helps you to meet the needs of kids. Um, so yeah, my Dr. Holly is my boss, and he is magnificent. With this work. He's been doing this work over 20 years. He had a school where it was an entirely culturally responsive school. Now, I didn't
Hmm.
know him at that time. I wish I had worked at that school, but I didn't know him at that time. I met him when he came to do professional development in my school when I was a school principal. And
Okay.
the nobody could tell me anything about this work because I was working in a school that was at the bottom 5% in the state, bottom 5%, and the state was about ready to come in and take the accreditation because of the one school. Okay.
Hmm.
So we had to get it together. We had to turn it around. And this pedagogy, this culturally responsive teaching and learning is how we did it.
That's what's up. So what besides like so what are the age range for these children that you guys deal with primarily?
Kindergarten through 12.
Okay, K through 12. The young women and children. So now
Yeah,
you have a channel, I see you say for women's empowerment as well. So I see, because one thing about the Hebrew channel, that's what we focus on, teaching the younger women and children. And then, as you know, on the Renaissance Woman, we talk a little more about business and our creativity, crafting, and things like that. And so we have been doing the leadership series. So it was just, you're really going to have to join us for some of these leadership discussions. But I
absolutely.
in terms of the younger women, so what is the message? What are you going to be doing for them?
Well, the message is the same for the younger women. I'm what might be considered an older woman, and I'm okay with that. I'm aging, but I'm living because aging is living. So I'm good with
Same
being an
here.
older woman. Okay. Um, but the message is the same. It's just that with the younger women, we can catch them earlier and hopefully help them to not go down some of the roads and make some of the mistakes that we made and had to recover from. If we
Hmm.
can get them and if we can get them to understand their worth and their value early, to love themselves, to love on themselves and prioritize their health, um, I think that, the message would be the same. Now, probably the examples that I provide would have to be more centered, right? The video that I'm going to review for my first live stream is of a woman. She's 56, but she's talking through her struggles in her life, and it's very compelling, but it meets right where it needs to make the message about why Girl You Better is needed, right?
Hmm.
And then in speaking with Nyla, she suggested another video of a younger woman who is going through her own set of struggles, but yet again, self-care, leadership, passion, and creativity. And I think that if this young woman is able to see these as assets and that she can move in that space, she can then, get there sooner rather than later. So I think the message is it's just for women, women who want to be their best selves, beginning with their health. That listen. we could talk all day about self-care culture. We wouldn't even have to bring in the other pillars, because there's an epidemic of poor health going on in our communities, and the women are being hit really hard would not even be able to get adequate medical attention. So what I would like to begin to show them is how they can avoid having to be in the care of a doctor in the first place. And that really has a lot to do with the food that we're eating and what we consider to be nutrition. Yeah.
I agree. And so, one of the things with the reviving of this channel was me just chronicling my journey, having been diagnosed with hyperaldosteronism and my high blood pressure. And so as I'm addressing these issues, I'm like talking about it in real time, just so people can, because this all can be avoided. Because one of the things that for me was the blood pressure pills. And they don't tell you, they always say, well, normally these are things that affect people later on in life. So normally they're used to people being on blood pressure pills for years. And they're like, well, normally it takes decades before someone starts having this. But basically blood pressure pills, especially if you're on a diuretic, that's how you see people, they end up on dialysis and it's the medication. We want to reverse the issues that get you on the medication in the first place. So that's where I am on my health journey. So we'll definitely
very good.
That.
Yeah, Ren, that it was the same for me. I had been taking blood pressure medication for about a decade, and went into the doctors to get some to review my labs. And in this particular visit, now she's talking about kidney function, and I'm like, wait a minute. And the thing that compelled me to really get on my journey was she would not admit that the blood pressure medicine had anything to do with it. She just would not admit that. And really? Because I told her, I said, well, what's causing the kidney? What is it? And she said, my weight. And don't get me wrong, I'm 5'5", I was 176 pounds. I needed to lose weight. But
right, and the weight is why you're on the medication. So like, I get it,
So, but she wouldn't cop to the fact that there's a direct correlation with the use of this medication and the deterioration of my kidney function, right? And so I was done. That was in January 2023. I have not been back to that doctor since, and I have not taken another blood pressure pill since.
Mm-hmm.
I just stopped it all, because what I realized is I had to make some changes in my diet, and I had to also, exercise and move. Part of me is I bottle up. Relaxing is not the easiest for me. And so, when you're tense, your blood vessels are constricted. If you're not relaxed, your vessels are not relaxed. And constricted blood vessels is essentially what high blood pressure is. They can't relax, so your blood can't flow naturally. And so for me, I've got to, I'm still working on relaxing, but see, that goes back to some trauma from childhood and some things, and being scared. And so, you find yourself, so I'm dealing with it though. Now I'm a conscious and I'm dealing with it. And so I'm better, but herbs have helped me the most with managing my blood pressure. Daily, vitamin D3, I'm taking 10,000 IUs. That's daily. Magnesium daily. Zinc, that's the 3 right there. Because you got to kind of take them in tandem for them to really work. But that potion right there will get it. And then also,
let me say this: people need to check. You need to get your blood work checked so you can know where your number. Because you can have too much. So, like in my case, my magnesium was fine. As a matter of fact, I almost had an issue where I was over. So like, people need to see what they need.
Yeah. And that's part of the conversation, that I like to have is, are we getting the lab work? Do you know what your lipid profile says? Right. Because I know mine, because I'm able to talk to you about needing the magnesium and the vitamin D, because I know what my profile says. And so I know how to do it. And I guess it's important to say this too, like, we don't want to go off down a rabbit hole of trying to self-diagnose and those kind of things, because you can't hurt yourself. You know, if you're taking medication prescribed by a doctor, you probably should work with your doctor if you're wanting to get off of it. Find a doctor that's willing to help you work to get off of it, because they're out there, right? You have doctors that don't necessarily want to prescribe you medicine. So do it under a doctor's care. I'm just sharing what worked for me, and we're
No,
all
no,
different.
I agree, because what people don't realize is when you're dealing with herbs, like these herbs are medicine. Your medicines come from plants, and so one of their medicine, like turmeric, people don't realize that there are thousands of people who end up in the emergency room yearly because they're overdosing on these herbs, because you think, well, they're just herbs, it's food, but no, these are medicines. Just like when I got COVID, how did I heal myself? I healed myself using herbs. I had a wormwood, uh,
Hmm.
echinacea. We had this. I have this bitter herbs concoction that I make, and I was able to get my taste buds back online naturally, because I knew when I lost my sense of taste and smell, get me some cinnamon, get me some cloves. I had my oil diffusers going day and night, and had eucalyptus in them, so I was able to get my olfactory senses back online in no
Yeah,
time. So, people need to be careful with these herbs. They're powerful, and you can't overdose on them. They can kill you. A
they
woman
really
killed
can.
a one. I know one instance of a woman who died because she ended up getting frankincense on her lungs. So people have to
Oh,
you have to be careful. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And so, but there are, there are naturopathic doctors out there, herbalists. I have so many books around here about herbs. Like, I'm not just going off
Mhm.
half cop. And then also, when I find people on YouTube, I like to cross triangulate the data. So one person
Yeah.
might say it, I need to find another doctor, and then yet it's still another doctor who is saying the same thing before I might think about doing that for myself.
Yeah,
And
go
it's
to the library, guys. You do the research, because
That's
the
right.
herb, the information is there. You can
It
Google
is.
it, like all the stuff, like with my medication. When I kept going to the emergency room. I ended up in the emergency room like 4 or 5 times. I eventually ended up diagnosing myself, because I ended up saying, you know what? I went in my chart. I read it for myself. There were things in my chart that I didn't even know was in there, because she was not telling me.
Right.
And I was basically, when I finally ended up going to see the kidney specialist, using YouTube and the internet, I had already figured out and read my charts myself to figure out that it was hyperaldosteronism. So I'm like, okay, this is it. I know from now on I will never leave my health in the hands of these doctors. I will do my own research and read about these medications that they are giving me and what I'm doing and taking, because they're making money with these pharmaceutical companies. They don't care about your health.
Right.
You know.
And it's like every other system in America, the education system, the medical system, the judicial system. Every system in this country is about monetization and capitalism. When you put a dollar on anything, folks are going to yield to making the money, whether they're doing the good work or not. Right. And I
Yeah.
personally believe a lot more of us can be healed if we just do the research, follow the right people. Like, we following a bunch of people on
Yep.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, but are you following anybody that's trying to give you information about how to heal yourself?
Yeah.
You
Nope.
know?
I would tell
Um,
people, like, check them all out. I check out everybody from Yaki Awaken, Dr.
yes,
Sadie. And then, because
yes,
just because, and it's not one size fits all, because all of our bodies are different. So some things may not work for you. But I
that's
like
right.
Josh X. I like Mark Hyman. And I so many podcasts that I
It's
watch.
so
Impact
many.
Here. So many
It's
good
so
things out
many.
here.
I love Dr. Frida. She's, to me, she's a lot. Sometimes Dr. Frida is more the establishment side of things, right? But she is giving a lot of information about blood pressure and kidney health, and the connection between your blood pressure and your kidney, right?
Hmm.
It's a connection there,
Yep.
right? So she does a lot of that. But Yaki has been a absolute jewel. He has
You know
been.
he's from St. Louis.
I do, and his clinic. I can't wait to visit and go check out that clinic out there. That brother,
My
girl.
husband knows him. Yeah.
Yes, he is doing some amazing things. And the one thing about him is he's very humble, and he does come back and admit when he may have gone
Yeah,
off on the wrong side. Like, I was wrong about this, let's correct it, that kind of thing. And
right.
uh I like how he does his messaging.
Me too. Now, do you
Yeah.
mind if I ask you about, like, so speaking of some messengers online, I'd like to ask you, since we're just talking about content a little bit, we
Yeah.
were talking about the whole women's empowerment movement. So the women's empowerment movement that you see that from what you see online, where do you think it's gone wrong? What do you think happened?
Um, where do I think it's gone wrong? So I think that, and this is not in any particular order, right? But I
Mm,
think the competition amongst the women to gain an audience is the first problem, right? We're all competing to capture the audience instead of just putting out our content and allowing the audience to find you, right? I
yeah,
don't, I'm good with what you're doing on your side, from content creator to content creator. I'm good with you. I'm good with you. I'm gonna do my thing, and my audience will find me. But see, that's what happens when things become monetized. It becomes very competitive and even cutthroat. So I think that's one issue. Another issue with women's empowerment, to me, again, seems to be all about your life with men and your love life, your relationship, what the men did, how you look at the men, if you're a pick me and a mammy. And I just hate all of that. I can't stand any of that. I'm not calling anybody a pick me. I'm not calling anybody a mammy. I think they are totally derogatory terms. And a lot of the women empowerment influencers are using these terms to either gain an audience or to deter people from going to other creators, right?
yeah,
And I think it's sickening, it's disgusting. So that's another thing. But that's, again, still in that vein of competition. The other part of it is, I think that many of the women's message is just a repetitive loop. It's the same messaging over and over again, with a different color bow on it. It's not anything really new. And while it might be very entertaining, I don't know that it's really doing anything to help women become a better self, to become better women. I know it's not doing anything for their health. So,
right.
you know, um, now, as I say all of that, where it's gone wrong, I do think that these influencers ought to be complimented in their ability to capture the attention of
Right.
hundreds of thousands of women, you know, um, because I can't deny that I too have been followers of some of these women. But I'm glad that I'm old enough and in a mind space enough to know that you're not talking about every man on the planet, because I've met some beautiful men. Okay.
Right.
I've been in the company of beautiful men. I have a beautiful man in my life right now. Right. So every man, right? You're not talking
Right.
about every man. And your standard and your criteria for what a good man and a good relationship is not mine. I create and cultivate my own relationship. So because you think it's a bad relationship, because you think it's struggle love, that's fine. But over here, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm smiling, I ain't yelling at nobody.
And
So
I hate that for us that we do that to other women. That I see that created in here where we're telling other women because okay, just because you don't like that or and you wouldn't settle for that, I don't see it as settling. I like it. And I
I
love that
like
you
it.
said that because I think women, you can't empower women if you're rejecting them and you want to segment us off into these different groups of mammies, pick me, you're not acceptable if you don't believe this, if you're dating a man, like it's almost towards a push towards lesbianism that if you need to be one if to be you should be wanting to be in a relationship with a woman if you truly desire to be happy and it's just like it's just the messaging is just getting odder and odder for me. And I
or
just was
that
just
or
like,
that you want to be in a relationship with somebody from a different nation.
yeah,
What? Like,
hmm
never. And I'm talking about for me, for
right,
me. If there's a woman who in company with and she's found love that way, girl, go live your best life, do your thing. But for me, that message doesn't resonate with me. Neither message, being with a woman
Yeah.
or someone from a different nation, and then the other thing, and this might be a little messy, but I'm gonna say it. I don't believe that queens are made. I think they are born. I don't think we making queens. I think they're born. We just have to help them to see, how to adjust their crown. That's it.
Okay. I like that. I think that one thing that was always disappointing to me, and I used to talk about this all the time, was I felt like the older women were not sharing because I felt like for my generation, they didn't share their knowledge, their failures. One things we like to keep to ourselves are the mistakes that we made because, whether embarrassment or whatever, but it's just like, I felt like some of those lessons really would have benefited if we could have heard our mothers, our aunts, or older sisters, or whoever talk about those things. And I just remember when I worked at a place called Rib Cafe when I was still doing food service. It was in my early 20s, and I met a woman there that worked there named Sandy, and she gave me a book that changed my life, and it was The Value in the Valley, ironically by Iana Van Zandt. And from
Okay.
there, I went on to start watching the Oprah Change Your Life series and got introduced to authors. Their books, Debbie Ford, those books really shaped and changed my life. So for you, can you name a couple of books that changed your life?
Yeah. So let me think now, because I'm on my mind. Jeanie Pearl. That's what's on my mind. Jeanie Pearl. But the Toni Morrison series of books, because I identify with the storytelling, right?
Okay.
Um, from Beloved to whatever, like anything she's written. And, a lot of that stuff I would teach excerpts from because I was an English teacher, high school English teacher.
Okay.
So I was able to identify with her work and the work of Maya Angelou as well.
Oh, yeah.
That just really touched me. And the first book I remember reading from cover to cover was The Color Purple. And I was in eighth grade. And of course I read books, Judy Blume and all of that. I've been a reader all my life,
Me too.
but in terms of changing my life, just seeing how these women have been able to lay the story on the page using the words in a particular way, right? Helping you to really be able to construct images in your mind based on the way they tell the story has been really, really good stuff for me. But, I also read Brene Brown because I'm really into this leadership work, and her work is really good when you're looking at leadership and how women lead, right? Dare
Just
to
picked up
lead.
her new book. What is
Yeah.
this one? Where is it? It's a paperback now. Just picked it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So see, yeah. So and it doesn't matter as much. Well, let me take that back. It matters who you're reading. Because you want messages that are going to resonate with your life. But what
Yeah.
I'm finding is when we begin to look at the stories of women as a collective, we have more things in common than we don't have in common. Now, there are things we don't have in common,
Right.
okay? But just being feminine and being a woman in these Americas, we have a lot in common and we could really learn a lot from each other. Um, and I know that's not really the vibe or the energy right now because of the recent election, right? I get it. Everybody wants to kind of disconnect and, you go there, I go there, and that's fine. That you have to do what suits you. I'm just saying that the messages from most of the women who have dared to write their lessons on a page and share them with the world give us more than they take away from us, I think.
I agree. I think, books are important and they can take you places. I've read so many, and even the right romance novels can take you places. I love romance, and just books can just take you everywhere and anywhere. And make you think about things differently and reshape your view of the world. I would say getting introduced to Brene Brown really changed my view on empathy and compassion, and how you just speak to yourself in guilt and shame. And I just love the conversation around it. Louise
Yeah,
Hay, you know.
yeah. No, yeah, just to piggyback on that thought, yeah, she really helps you to see how you're not you could be much kinder to yourself, and give yourself a break. Because there's not a script for it, and
Right.
so uh it's okay to make mistakes, but you pick up the pieces and you keep moving. And so that's what's really helped me, amongst other books, right? Because I'm into the educational side too. Zaretta Hammond and her work has been life changing as well. But the Bernays and the Shirls and the different Lean In and those kind of
Yeah.
writers have helped me to coin how to be a good professional leader as well.
Yeah.
It's not about it's more about connecting with the person, right?
Hmm.
The title comes later. The person, if you can make connections with people, you can influence them, you can impact their life, you can lead them, and they will follow.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Brené's good about that.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of dynamic. Like, in Patrick Lencioni has a good podcast on here of the Working Genius podcast. There are a lot of good leadership podcasts on here on YouTube, and just a lot of good information on here for people who are new in leadership. And like for myself to have been promoted to a leadership position at work, it just really
Nice.
shaped how
Congratulations, Raymond. That's
I think.
good.
It definitely impacts how I view, like, even just your working relationship with your team. It just makes me view people different at work, because you don't get to just be a regular person. And so it really is changing the way I view my coworkers and the workspace period. So yeah, I would
Right,
definitely say being promoted into leadership positions can really impact your life. And then having the type of job that I do, where we're active in the community, and when you're going to neighborhood and organizations and community meetings and speaking and things, you can really learn to develop your voice and
right,
help
right.
where it counts.
And, and that's why the leadership discovery pillar was important for me to cultivate in my work. More women need to find themselves leading. They have the skills. They just need somebody to point them out. If you've been married and been responsible for managing a home, how many leadership traits does that really take? Organizing and
All of
time management and all of these things, right? These are valuable leadership traits. And my single mothers out there, like, I'm so tired of people beating single mothers over the head. Like, listen, the single mother has so many leadership skills. She's had to cultivate them in order to just be able to raise a child and keep life moving for herself and those children or that child. There is leadership abilities in that. Why not take those? Well, first, let's discover them. Let me help you discover them, because they're there. I know they're there. If you're a good mother and you are doing what you need to do on behalf of your family, your children, you have leadership skills. Let's talk about how to develop those, right?
it.
Um,
Exactly.
because they're there. I don't know that I've ever met any woman or any women that didn't possess some sort of leadership abilities just based on how they've had to construct and live their life. That's where it
Yeah.
comes from. That grit, pulling up your sleeves and having to get busy, making a way out of no way. You know what I mean? Not having anybody there for you when you needed them, but you were able to push on. That's what good leadership traits are all. That's what it's based upon.
I think people don't look at it that way, and that's one of the things that we were talking about on one of our leadership discussions. Is that you're managing a household, you're marketing yourself. Like, even when you go out and you are marketing yourself to look for a job, when you go to do an interview, you are marketing yourself, and then just managing yourself as an employee. you are your own personal business. You know what I'm saying? So you're just like
That's
that
true,
business
Ren.
is keeping the lights on. When you go home and you manage your household and your family, you're keeping the lights on there as well. I
That's
don't.
very true. That's very true,
Mhm.
Ren. That's you know, an image popped in my head when you said that, the mother in the grocery store is marketing herself. She's marketing herself as a competent, a good mother, right? Being dressed, well put together. And I'm not talking about designer. I'm saying clean and well
Yeah.
coiffed, right? With the children in tow. You know what I'm saying? Managing that budget, making sure that whatever goes in that cart, she's going to be able to afford that and it's going to nourish her family. All of that are marketing tools. That's
Hmm.
amazing. And I also want to say this, Ren, now, especially since I know, and I would have said this anyway, but you just put the other piece of the puzzle in place. You're working on your self-care, you're discovering how to heal yourself. You got
Hmm.
a promotion and now you're leading people in your work. And anybody that knows you knows that you've always leaned into your passion and creativity. You've always leaned into it. You were showing us back in 2018, 19, 20, how to use, cook different things, soups and broth. Like you don't need to buy your broth. You can make your own broth. This is how you
Right.
do it. You were painting and doing all of these cool things right there in your home and showing them to us. So you are a model example of what I'm talking about, right? When we
I
talk
call
about
myself Renaissance woman because I think we all should tap into our own inner Renaissance woman.
yes, yes. So definitely you're gonna have to come to my channel and talk to the ladies.
Oh well. And especially, and this time I think a lot of women I know they're concerned, they're worried about how things are going. And I hear now, like even with the freak out of, this current election, and I'll just tell people that we just keep going. I mean, like this isn't the first time. It's not going to be the last time. And these elected officials, they're not your guys. And keep in mind, our politics is local too, and so you still have to do what you got to do at the end of the day, no matter who's in that White House. And whatever comes, we'll deal with it, just like we have always done.
Just like we have always done. I understand the disappointment. I get it, but I didn't expect the fallout that I'm seeing. It's it's a little strange to be honestly, Ren.
I
We've
don't think
never
it
had a
happened at the same time. I feel like every election on both sides, because I don't know if people remember, even when Bush was elected, the weeping and gnashing of teeth, the Dixie Chicks, like people don't remember how there was a lot of contentions because of the issues surrounding the war. Remember that organization Pink? A lot of people forget that there's always on both sides, there are going to be people who are going to go to extremes. They went to extremes under Bush. They went to extremes under Obama. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, it just baffles me that people still can't see that neither one of these sides really has the everyday working class, everyday Joe's interest at heart. They don't care about us down here. They
That's
don't.
true. I mean, that those are the facts. And that's what I'm getting to. It's like, y'all, did y'all really think that first of all, that it was gonna, I just don't see that that's gonna be the savior. I'll leave it like how you said it.
Right.
It's just not. It never has been for us.
Exactly. And I want to get into a little bit about, like, because as I grow older, my jubilee will be here before you know it. 50 knocking on my door, and just getting older, and just I feel like I want to start having more conversations. That's what, like I said, my channels have started being more about, especially the Hebrew woman and the Renaissance woman channel, just women talking to women about life, love, relationships. What are you doing to grow? And self care. And I love that you said that earlier. And I saw it in one of your videos. Self care is just not about going to get pedicures and manicures. There's a lot more to self care than you going to get your face reconstructed and lipo and Ozempic, okay? So, like, how are you cognitively? How are you functioning? your ability to be in community with other women, other men, children, people in your community. Are you isolated? Because I think we have pushed this idea of autonomy so far that
Mhm.
people are alone and they feel isolated. So,
Yeah.
for you, what would you say to younger women who are feeling, or whoever that's feeling isolated and that they don't have a community? Because I keep hearing people say there is no community, the black community doesn't exist. And what do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I've never, walked into any place or, come across a group of women that I couldn't in some way identify with, strike up a conversation with, find something in common, and thus continue a relationship if that's what we wanted or I wanted, right? Um, I think that community is very important for us. I mean, when you really think about historically, community is how we've sort of navigated these lands together.
Hmm.
Without it, we would have been decimated, like, picked off one by one, because, we wouldn't have had the that communalism, that coming together with the thinking that the we is more important than the I. That's always been who we are as a people. And I think we're starting to um and maybe we're already so far down the line with this, but we're starting to think about it as, me, myself, and I, and it's all about me and what I'm doing. And that's just not how a marginalized group is ever going to win anything.
I
You've
agree.
got to find your tribe, your community of like-minded people and move in unison. Now, I recognize that everybody is not going to, see the same way that everybody sees. All of us, we're going to always be able to get along. It's not going to always be hugs and kisses and love and flowers. I get that. Um, but I just don't see how we're going to ever make any sort of impression on our future or present or anything if we're not trying to work together. Communalism is how we've sustained thus far, and I don't think we're going to do any better if we try to, dismantle that now. I just don't see that. So I would say find your community. Who are those people, the like-minded people around you who you can commune with. And part of understanding your passion and creativity, that can lead you to your community, to the people,
Okay.
right? Your arts and crafts, your hobbies. Are you a swimmer? Do you run? Jazzercise, aerobics. I mean, at this point, pole dancing. I mean, let's talk about it, because that is a workout, okay? And I ain't talking about
Mhm.
pole dancing because you about to go get in the club and get on a pole. I'm talking about because you enjoy dance and you're exploring different types of dance, and there are other women there, and you guys have formed a community. One of
Yeah,
my
I've seen the
friends,
studios. They have some pole dancing workout studios now.
yeah, one of my good friends, she's actually a soror. We didn't know it when we first met, but then we learned we were sorority sisters. But we joined a boot camp together outside. We were, doing Camp Gladiator is what it was called. And we were doing all this working out outside, summer, winter, fall, this and that. And one day she came, and we were about a year in, I guess. And she came and she said, I'm gonna go over here and try out this pole dancing class. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Let me know what you think. And so she went and she tried it out, and she let me know I'm gonna do that. I like it. I enjoy it. And I was like, well, I'm gonna stay here at Camp Gladiator. And so she went, and she to this day. Now this was in 21, 22. To
Hmm.
this day, she is still doing that pole work. And I'm telling you, the muscle definition in that girl arms and in her legs, I was like, wait a minute, you might be on to something right here, but and I've taken a couple classes. It's not really for me, but
Hmm.
I understand what was the attraction for her. There's a community of ladies there, all walks of life, all shapes, sizes, all of it, and they
Yeah.
are having a good time learning how to exercise in this way, learning how to be in community with other women. So you just have to find your group, and then, ingratiate yourself, get on up in there and get with them. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and I will say, and I say this too to people: stop waiting on people to reach out to you. Because sometimes, when I had to tell my mother that we were both saying, people, nobody ever calls me. It's like, well, who did you call? nobody, because you're waiting for if everybody just keeps waiting for someone to call them, nobody's gonna call. So I kind of learned that because at first I was feeling like, oh, I'm the black sheep. I had created this because sometimes you're still running off of your childhood program. And my childhood program was I'm the black sheep. I'm on my own all the time because nobody liked to watch Star Trek and I was always by myself. But as I've gotten older, I realized that I'm isolated because I isolated me. I wanted to be alone. So when I
Right.
want to reach out and when I want to be bothered, I have come to find that there's always somebody willing to do and be with me. So you're
Yeah,
not as isolated as you think you are. Sometimes you just need to make the first move, and that's
that's true.
okay.
That's true, and it's totally okay. And you brought up another thought, Ren. I think that, and these are conversations I'm definitely going to have on my channel, because I think it's going to lend to this emotional self care, right? And it may even do some, some mental self care. But we really got to start healing those bruises from childhood. We gotta first of all recognize that they are there. I think
Yep.
many of us know we had a tough childhood and we just keep pushing. We keep on moving
Yeah.
forward. But we got to circle back and deal with some of that, because some of that is the reason why we are stuck today.
Mhm.
I just recently had an experience that told me, because I've always resonated with my childhood traumas, and I just keep moving. Okay, it happened. I'm here now. Let me keep going. But I learned that I need to do a little bit more work around it. I was in a chiropractor's office and having an experience there. And I'm laying on the table and she's, doing her different things. You know how chiropractors, they're moving, trying to find what's this connected to, and they're pressing this and pushing that. And in my mind, I'm like on the table, but I'm clenched. I'm literally clenched. I'm not relaxed. And as I'm clenching and I'm like, why am I not relaxed? A memory from my childhood, encapsulates my mind. And I'm like, and it was a childhood memory of me being clenched.
Mm.
Okay. And I realized at that moment, almost even in tears, like, man, I got to deal with that. That came back on me like a flood. I didn't even realize it was something I needed to deal with. Right. It happened, and lucky for me, it's never anything actual, nothing like that. But just a lot of, fighting and arguing from the
Yeah.
adults always, that's what I'm talking about with
Yeah.
me. And I know women have dealt with far greater things, but even those things have an impact on who
It
you
does.
are. And so don't be
Anxiety.
afraid. Don't be afraid to go back and revisit those things as a means to your healing. And then another thing I had to reconcile with was some of that being clenched, right? And not being able to relax. Not only was it impacting my health, I talked about the blood pressure, but it was all for many years in my life. I believe it had a lot to do with my attitude, Ren.
Yeah.
Being confrontational, not
Yeah.
not argumentative, not argumentative for arguing and being angry, but just always having to have a comeback, being argumentative, um and when I really think about it, that's just not who I am, but it was who I was programmed to be because of being in an environment for so long, for so many years.
Always on the defensive. You feel like you're constantly attacked, and so that's one of the things. And it's psyche, the black psyche, right? We're always feeling like we're under attack, and even in the workplace, wherever you feel like you're always having to defend yourself. When you're a kid, you're always being, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad,
Yeah,
and it's just like, why did you do this? Why did you do that? And so, as an adult, you take on this defensive posture where
yeah,
it's just like I'm always in defense mode. So it's just like deprogramming yourself from that. You know what I mean?
you
And so
got
I think
to.
when you recognize those patterns, you can address them and you can be more aware and stop. Just stop. Sometimes you might even stop yourself in the middle of it, but just like, hey, at least you're aware. And I would tell
Right,
anybody like relationships, everybody is so anti relationship now. Your relationships are how we see each other. You can't see yourself. The best way for
right,
you to see yourself is through other people. So I always tell people when I don't have any regrets about past relationships because I do understand they shaped who I am. I would not have gotten to the understanding that I'm at if I had not went through those experiences. But now I know based on imago therapy, because I do like Harville Hendrix' book, Getting the Love That You Want, because it taught me now with my husband that I'm able to recognize when something comes up, like if I'm triggered by something he said, and he might not have met anything from it by it. But
Yeah.
now that I understand what I'm looking at now, where did that come from? Why did I react that way? And a lot of times it's because your relationships are opportunities for you to heal those past traumas. And
Yes.
most of us are healthy enough and aware enough where we're able to actually have those difficult conversations and walk that down. But
Right. And
and
it's
you have
important, y'all. It's so important. You don't
to,
even know what you're what you the bag lady, like Erica say, right? You gonna miss your bus dragging all them bags like that. You know what I mean? You gotta deal
and
with.
don't think being single you're going to avoid it, because what happens is if you're not in a relationship, guess where it's going to show up at? It's going to show up at work. And that's why some people can't keep jobs. So just like you
Right.
go from intimate relationship to intimate relationship, a lot of people are going from job to job because these issues are going to find a way to come up so that they can be resolved. But people don't, if you don't know what you're looking at, you'll never fix it. You
Very
know what I
true.
mean?
That's very true. It's gonna come out one way or the other. That's
It's
a
going to
fact.
come.
Whether it be on in your job, with your kids.
Yep.
And see, the thing too with the kids is um that trauma will keep on rearing itself because now you pass it on to someone else that's right in
Yep.
your direct proximity. So now you're dealing with it through them. And then if they have
Exactly.
kids, so forth and so on, and so you have to reconcile with it. And the thing about human beings is once that time has passed, you can't go backwards. So you want to make sure you are, sort of planting seeds that are going to be healthy. And if you make mistakes, don't deny it. Don't be in denial.
Yep.
Have those conversations. They're tough because you have to admit you did it wrong. But apologize. Let the person know I was this and I was going through this and I didn't know this, right? I've had those conversations with my kids because I want them to be healthy men, right?
Yeah.
I want them to understand that mama didn't know. Mama
Yeah.
has always loved you, and I think they know that. They've known that. But, sometimes when it just felt kind of, tough, mama didn't know. Mama thought she was doing what was best. But understand that I
Right.
apologize if anything, was out of order or wasn't how it should be. Because my goal was always to make you better than I am.
Yeah.
So you have to have those conversations. Don't shy away from your mistakes. We all make them. But part of your healing is recognizing it. And then if you have to make apologies or whatever, then do that. And then you can move on.
When you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And in that vein, so would you like just a couple of, you know, I like how Oprah does that what I know for sure thing. So like, kind of in that vein, what is something that maybe you would have you wish you had a known, or that you would not even, because I'm telling you, I really believe in our growth experiences. I don't think we should be just like, oh, I hate my life, I did that. Because I love that Dottie Peoples song, you can always begin again, you can start over and begin again. But knowing now, like if you could impart some wisdom to your younger self, what would you have told yourself looking back?
Um, and it's so funny you asked that, Ren, because I'm going through a practice now in my life where I'm actually writing letters to my younger self. And sharing, how I feel and, where I'm sorry and what should have happened. I'm doing that work. It was something that I learned on a podcast, and I thought it was a great idea to help me to sort of get to that healing of that inner child. But one of the things that I've shared with my younger self was that you're going to be okay. You are going to be better than okay. Girl, you don't even know how okay you gonna be.
Yeah.
You can't tell right now because you clenched and you scared and you afraid. But girl, did I tell you was gonna be a doctor? You gonna be okay. is one of the things that I've made sure to tell my younger self. Um, love is real and it heals. That's another thing I'm telling her. It exists and it heals. Um, and you don't have to be tough anymore. You don't have to be tough. You don't have to fight. Um, I fighting, wow, that's too many fights just on the elementary. And I think in urban areas, this is sort of like a rite of passage. Kids fight.
Right.
Um, but I was never really wanting to ever fight. I never wanted to fight, but I had a lot of fights, right? Um, so yeah,
And
I'm
do you
telling her,
still
you
keep fighting?
say that again.
And then you find yourself still fighting as you get older. So when do you?
Yeah, you don't have to fight. You don't have to fight anymore. Stop fighting. It's okay to be meek and mild. You don't
Mm,
have to be tough. You don't. Why? You know, you can protect yourself and still be, as they're saying these days, demure.
right. Dr. G, I really enjoyed this conversation. We're definitely
Y-
going to have to do this again because I'm like, it's just so much ground to cover.
For
And
sure.
I really would like to continue this conversation because I think these messages to the younger generation are important. We need to have these, and you're catering to the culture. And now, girl, you better. I love it. So, you have final words for everybody?
This has been a pleasure, Ren. Absolutely a pleasure. My heart is full. I've missed you. And I know we're evolved past, you know, that type of content, right? What we were doing
Definitely.
before, right? But I look forward to sharing with you, in a new direction. I really do. Um, I want to pick your brain with some of the books because you're well read. I think that's valuable because I'd like to, as I do content, I just like to leave some options for people to explore deeper by reading a book or watching this documentary or even watching this movie, listening to this song, just kind of pouring it out. So I'll definitely be picking your brain about some of those things. I also look forward to it being invited to your leadership, your woman's group. That to me seems like something that would be really fulfilling. I look forward to that. And then final words, I just invite women to prioritize and be on the front lines for their own health, never putting it in the hands of doctors or anyone else. It's your responsibility to take care of yourself. You have leadership skills within you. Let's get those up and help you to sort of nurture that so that you can show up in the world again as your best self. And I don't know what your passion is or what your creativity is, whether it's singing, writing, whatever it is. I need you to lean into that and see, doesn't it make your heart healthy and happy? I guarantee you it will. Guarantee it.
Amen. Thank you so much, Dr. G. Thanks for watching,
Absolutely.
everybody, and have a great evening. Shalom.
Shalom.